Okay, at this time, we will call the budget work session to order. Tonight, we're going to we have the proposed 2013 budget presented by the staff, and from the preliminary looks, it looks pretty good, so we'll discuss it, kind of go through it. I'll let Aaron run with it for now, and then we will go from there.
All right. Yeah, I apologize for getting this out so late, but again, we were hoping we can get all the numbers in before we did it, so we didn't have to add something later. And we got our final health insurance numbers in on Monday, and then with the election Tuesday, and then Wednesday being the day after election, it took till today to actually get it in. But we got it to you, so we apologize for being a little late, but I can run through kind of where we're at. If you remember, the preliminary budget that we adopted was roughly a 9% increase over our 2012 budget. Since that time, we've come up with about $268,000 in cuts to bring that down to what we've got proposed right now. I can run through kind of where those cuts came from. The top one, again, is reducing transfers to capital funds. Like we talked about last year, we look at each fund each year to determine who needs what. So when I say, it's a 70,000 reduction, it's not across the board. Actually, some got more this year than they got last year. Others got less, and it just worked out that when we take a look, we look at our long-term needs. Every year, we send out our capital plan to the department heads. Do you really need this vehicle next year? Do you need this next year? And for the most part, everybody pushes them out another year. We've done, I think, an excellent job. The staff has done as far as, really extending the life of our equipment. So we get that updated, and then I take a look at it and figure out financially what do we need to be transferring into each fund to help pay for at least a portion of all these expenses coming up. So in doing that again, we identified about $70,000 that we could reduce from what we had in the preliminary budget. So there's that change. Seal coating, if you remember, we had that out of the budget for a few years. This year we preliminarily had it in there at $100,000. Tom's confident that 50 is really what we kind of need for this year, and we'll do another 50 next year. And we think that carrying forward, that should be about the right amount every year to cover what we need.
Are we getting way behind on that, Tom, or not?
No, I feel right now we're maybe 2 years behind, but we can catch that up.
So there's no real bad spots that you really,
The verdict's really not out. It's coming through whether seal coating is really the best value for your dollar. There's kind of some talk right now that it may not be, that there's other products out there. So we may find out in a couple of years that there's something that's out there that's better.
really?
Yeah.
For cheaper or,
Not necessarily cheaper. It's not
but
cheaper.
longer lasting or something?
Longer lasting, deeper penetrating, not necessarily cheaper, because it's like anything, the first guy out there pays the high premium. So we might see something 3, 4, 5 years down the road that's gonna be better than seal coating, but right now I don't have the numbers to back that up.
But you're comfortable with this, right?
I'm comfortable. $50,000 gets us, the big players come in for that amount, gets us the lowest price, and gets us back, if nothing else, gets us back on the track again to start the program up again.
Okay.
So the next one was when we just did our bond refundings. As part of that, once we get the actual bids in and we know what our interest rates are and stuff like that, we have to take a look at each of those bonds just to see, okay, so we got new rates, here's what we were paying before, what should we pay going forward, where they stand. Well, when we took a look at one of them, we had a higher balance, cash balance in that account for that bond than we actually had anticipated. So taking a look at that with the new interest rates, we were able to lower our debt levy by $72,000, which was completely unexpected and really helped a lot with the budget. So that worked out really well. We were really happy to see that. So there's, it's not anything that, requires any sort of special changes, whatever. It just worked out that way, that with the amount of money we had in that debt service fund, and then with the new interest rates, we were able to drastically reduce what we had to levy for that bond and still meet all the requirements and payments without a problem. So that was good. And then the last part was always just, when we start off in the beginning of the year, we always try to aim high for utilities, personnel costs, insurance costs, all those sort of things. And then by the end of the year, we have a much better idea of where we really stand. So after going through all that, to be honest, over half of that is health insurance. We had budgeted, I think, a 17% increase in our health insurance, and it came in at, I think, 3.5. So, we saved a good significant chunk of money there, and the rest were just adjustments to the, personnel costs. Again, we aimed high for that. We negotiated our union agreements to less than what we budgeted for, so that was some savings there, and then also just fine tuning the last parts of the budget with utilities and things. And that kind of brought us to our final number where we're at.
And Aaron, we're still waiting on the LE.
The only one that's left out there, yeah, I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that one, except that they know kind of where everything else has been settled at. They've got their last offer. I'm pretty sure that we've got an agreement in place. They just have to vote on it. So I think we're okay.
This won't require any cuts in services?
No, and that's, that's the nice thing. I mean, every year we look at that financial management plan. I think when we looked last year, we figured we'd have a 7, almost an 8% levy increase this year to do everything we said we'd do, which included, the starting of the debt service for the West Side project, which is happening in this budget. All these other sort of things that are going on. And, we were able to, other ways, come up with the savings. Sometimes you have increases here, you cut there, and, it all balances out. Now, you can't promise it every year, but, we've been lucky so far that we've been able to do a lot of things without having to take a look at any sort of real dramatic changes in services, those sort of things. So right now with what we have proposed, we'd be looking at about a 3% decrease in our levy from last year, which is about that $67,000. Now, what we are requesting though is that for last 3 years
2 years.
or so,
Three.
3 years or so, back when we kind of, first when some of these LGA and unallotment things happened, at the same time, we had kind of a shakeup in our motor vehicle department, and we only replaced our one full-time position and not, we've always in the past had a full-time and a half-time position in there. So what we did was, just to help save money, was that we replaced the full-time, but then we had office staff from City Hall cover when they were busy. So Diane, Sarah, Michelle would go down there when they're busy to help kind of pick up, what's going on and when they need it. And that worked, but we have really gotten to the point now where it's not anymore. It's happening a lot where they're having to take big chunks of their day off to go down there, which means that the work that they're supposed to be doing isn't getting done. We're getting really backed up. It's very stressful on the employees, and it's not something that's long-term sustainable. So what we're asking is right now we estimate that we transfer about $14,500 per year from motor vehicle to the city to pay for those hours that they do. We would like to add that money back into the budget, and then we'd be able to hire a part-time person again in motor vehicle. And so motor vehicle would use that $14,500, plus we assume about another $5,000 for about $20,000. Motor vehicle would be able to pay for that position out of the motor vehicle fund. It should be self-supporting, shouldn't be a problem. It's just that we got to put that $14,500 back into the general fund, which had been coming from motor vehicle. But I honestly think that we really need to do that. And if we did that, then we'd be at about a $50,000 decrease, which is still 2.3%, which is, still with everything going on, I would have to say is pretty good.
What do you mean? You mean there'd be that much of a decrease in our present tax levy?
Right. If we approve hiring this part-time position in motor vehicle, which means that we'd have to put back into the budget that $14,500 we've been taking from motor vehicle to cover our staff time from City Hall side. Even with that, we'd still be looking at $53,068 reduction in our levy from last year, which is 2.3%.
That's great.
Yeah, it is. I just wanted, the last 2 years, we cut 2% off each the tax levies, right?
Oh, we did 2 years ago, and then we
Last
followed
year
up
was-
at zero last.
Yeah,
Last year was zero.
Last year, yeah.
Flat last year. Then the year before that, it was a 1.78,
something like
something like that. It was close to 2.
Yeah, and it was flat a couple years before that.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest, for the council to have basically either flat or have zero increases or reduce the levy over the last 4 or 5 years is, I think, I'm not sure you can find another city in the state that can say that. With the economic times we've been going through, and with all the work we did, it's not that we've cut everything to the bone and said we're just providing nothing but the bare minimum. I mean, we've
Kept
done
up
the
with
West Side
service.
project.
Right.
We've got a number of major things that we've still undertaken. We haven't really put anything to the side. So, I think, it's something the council definitely can, be proud of to have been able to do all the work that we've done and continue to do while still either keeping that levy flat or reducing it.
I think you're a little bit unfair with yourself, because I think you do a heck of a job at this type
Yeah.
of thing. If I had to make a guess at you, Aaron, you're a real numbers guy, and they drive me crazy, and I'm so grateful that you're so good at it. Now, I think both of you need to be complimented on the job you've done the last 2-3 years. And also, are things like refinancing our bonds and stuff, that's things that you and staff have brought up to us that of course, we think about that we would never get added from up here. So all that little stuff helps, and plus the fact, I think a little bit of credit has to go to Dave for development. We've got this new Casey store going in. We got this Gemini thing that happens. And what people don't realize is these little $1,500 tax bases here and there all help. And when you put all them little numbers together at the end of the year, it keeps us at zero anyway. So I think you need some credit over there too.
Well, and I'd have to say that, thank you, I appreciate that, but also, the bigger thing for me that makes it easy is that, with Linnell and the other department heads, is that they've all been willing to come up with ways to help get things balanced. Like we talked about, every year it can't be the same thing. Tom can't say, I'm not going to seal coat forever. Right. So for a couple of years, Tom said no seal coating, but this year he said he had to do it. So then other departments step up and say, okay, we know that this is coming, so it's our turn now. We can do away with this for a while. We've had in that capital plan a new police garage for I'm not sure how long, and, someday. But, we keep kind of pushing that off. So I do have to say that, it makes it easier. It makes it easy for me when Linnell and the other department heads are willing to, work with me on it. I've never had to butt heads and fight with anybody to get what we need to get where we get a final number that I know is going to, be acceptable to the council. So that helps a lot. I mean, it definitely really does.
Well, you and Linnell deserve credit. And also, of course, you're inspired by your city council that you work with too, probably.
Yes, we are.
Yes, I can see that. But I was just, I was just wondering, it's good that we cut the tax levy. That's excellent. We cut it once, and we leave it at zero, and now we're going to cut it two. But for future revenues that we might need in the future, would it be smarter just to cut it 1% and collect extra?
We've had that conversation before, and to be honest, I think my opinion on it is that, we need to do what we can each year. And if, this year we can cut, say, 2%, and next year we have to go up 2%, we're still looking at a budget then that where you compare it to 2 years ago is exactly the same. To say that we should put a little away just to make sure to balance it, because I don't know what's going to happen in a year. I don't know what happens in a 2 year, just because in this current financial situation, we don't know what we're getting from the state.
That's why I'd like to have as much cash on hand.
And we do have, but the flip side is that we have a very comfortable general fund balance. If we had like a 30% general fund balance, I would be more than likely to say, let's take our extra 1-2% and put it in the general fund to save it. But we're going to be, even with the interchange project and the money we'll be spending for that, all those sort of things, we're still going to be over 50% in our general fund.
And with the improvements we'd have on the roads or
Yep.
around the hospital and all, 'cause we haven't really discussed what they're asking for us for.
They haven't really asked us for anything yet, but if they do, there's expenses obviously involved, but I think that's something that will work out with them as their responsibility. But what I'm saying is we've got a more than comfortable general fund, and so, in my opinion is, we do it while we can. We help the property owners in town out every year that we can. Some years we may not be able to help them as much. Other years we can, but I think we should, when we can, make that effort. And it's like Leroy said, you don't notice maybe when you see these, how much does the Casey's help? How much does this help? But the bottom line is that the more commercial industrial property we get, the larger our tax base becomes. So every time that we hold at zero or go under, not only is that go down, but as your property tax base expands, it goes down even further. So it compounds what we're doing. So if we can lower it by 2 and our property value goes up by 2, it's actually a 4% decrease to the property owner. So you put those two together and you can see some real significant savings.
I'm glad you're optimistic about everything, so optimistic.
I try to be.
Well, there's one other item you put in here that, with that 50,000, can we look at maybe?
Right.
Because I think, next year, we're still looking at a 10%?
10 or 8, I can't remember where it was in the plan. I'll have to take a look again. It's probably 10 though. So that was the other option is that if nothing else, maybe we should take that $50,000 and take a look and how we can do it is that the one bond that we're getting the savings out of, part of the revenue of that is transfers from the water fund. So what we could do is instead of adjusting the bond levy down even further, we could take a look at instead adjusting the transfers from that water fund. So what that means is that we could take that 50,000 from that water fund that we're and put it towards that. And so what would that mean for the water rate increase next year?
I would really like to look at that
Right.
because
Yep.
in addition to, even if we're able to keep a zero levy, we should, if at all possible, look at people who still gotta pay a water and sewer bill, but they don't, they're not property owners, these type of things, we wanna help them out. We still understand there's gonna be an increase in the water thing, but if we can lower the increase a little bit, that's nice.
Okay, and actually, we're starting the process now of reviewing rates for next year, so it'll be easy just to, we'll get basically the rate review process done where we'll have recommended increases, then we'll say, okay, so what happens if we take out 50,000? What does that do to that? And then we can have that for the next work session, so that at that point, I think at the next work session, you can decide, okay, do we just leave it as a reduction in the levy, or should we instead keep the levy, say, at zero and take the 52,000 and have that as less money coming out of the water fund so we can lower those rates.
Yeah, at least have the numbers to
Right,
compare
then
and
you guys
make
can
an
make a
informed
decision
decision.
on what you think about that.
You know, I want to do what we can to just keep that water level for 1 year. Just for 1 year
know.
would make me happy.
Well, maybe we can do it with this, at
And
least get close.
The other thing is that you get back to, technically, we had $60,000 balance last year. If you threw that into the water fund, that brings us back to neutral. So if you're bringing this 50,000 in there, that brings us back to neutral. You guys all like to put your numbers in the right columns, but it's all, if we did just arrive at that, then we could actually have a neutral year. I think it makes a lot of difference. There are families out there. It's like I said at Public Works today, on some sewer and water bill issues that we had, is it used to be, that I kinda had it calculated out, it's about $17 per person for water and sewer in the city of Cannon Falls, and that is up to $20 now. So after the last increase, that's how much difference it makes. And whatever we could do to hold this down, it would really be nice. You also said we got a reserve amount in that sewer and water fund of like $1 million or whatever it was. I also know that when we're updating this structure on our streets and our sewers and waters in town, that also shouldn't mean we have as big a demand on that account. So I think we can look more at once these street projects all get down, we don't need that bigger reserve in there all the time. So I think you're doing a great job, and yeah, I'd like to keep sewer and water zero too.
Sewer, I don't think.
Maybe not what I consider.
So, but water, there's a possibility. We can definitely take a look at the water part. Sewer's
We
gonna be a
wanna
tough
keep the
one.
levy at zero at least.
Yep.
But the sewer did have a $60,000 surplus this year.
And it needed
I
every
didn't
cent of
forget that,
it.
Aaron.
It needed it all, though.
Okay, well, any further discussion on the budget?
No, this just looks,
I think at this
great.
point, then, Aaron, I'll go back and run the numbers for, to see what it would take, or see if we would save any money on the water and sewer bill to keep it at zero. And then let us know, and then if not, we go with the 2.3%. Thanks, everybody.